Now we can look at Descartes' entire program as being one of building up a pyramid of knowledge, we might say, and we can look at his meditations as progressively building on this theme. And the idea is, at the basis of it are his skeptical arguments, his reasons for doubt, which we find in that first meditation. So he gives us reason for thinking that certain beliefs don't lead you to good beliefs, aren't based on a good foundation, can be doubted, and we're going to treat all of those as if they are false. Or at least that's what Descartes suggests he's going to do, because he thinks if he can treat all those as false, then only use the ones that he can treat as good ones as being the basis for building up scientific knowledge from them on. And he thinks as a result of doubting everything he can, looking at those skeptical arguments, in his second meditation, he's going to end up with things about which he is certain. And what does he end up being certain about? His own existence, his own thoughts, his own sensations, basically what you might say is the content of his mind. In addition, in that meditation, he also starts talking about his idea of God. And then he also spends some time on thinking about why it is that he's so certain about the contents of his mind. And then based on that, he looks at what the nature, that is the essence, the real characteristics of physical objects are, and he comes to the conclusion, he gives you an argument for what's become known as Cartesian dualism, that the mind and the body are not one and the same. Now, moving on from there, from things that he thinks he's certain about and these other facts about metaphysics that he has, the next step is for him to build up to getting back to having knowledge of the external world. And to do that, Descartes, in the third meditation, presents his cosmological argument. It's kind of a unique cosmological argument, and that cosmological arguments, the traditional ones, started from the existence of the universe. Well, Descartes can't start from the existence of the universe, because the only thing that he can be certain about at this point in his journey is the own contents of his mind, but he notices that he has an idea of God. So it's based on the existence of his idea of God that Descartes comes up with an argument that the idea has to have been designed by some greater being than he, and therefore God exists. So there he thinks, the part of his program in the third meditation is to actually prove the existence of God. Now, why does he want to do that? Remember, his strongest reason for doubting everything that he doubted was that God was a deceiver, or there was an evil genius just as powerful as God and just as knowledgeable as God, who makes everything that he believes false. In the fourth meditation, he talks about truth and clear and distinct perceptions, because clear and distinct perceptions play a very important role in his epistemology. He thinks that they lead to truth. And then he also explains where falsity comes in, and it has to do with freedom of the will. Moving on from there to the fifth meditation, Descartes does two things. He presents another argument for God's existence, which is in itself somewhat puzzling, because he already has one argument, but he presents an ontological argument. He proves that it's impossible for God not to exist, or he uses a mathematical method to prove that the definition of God entails that God exists. And then he talks a little bit more about, in metaphysics, about the nature of the physical. And finally, in his sixth meditation, You can see the nature of the physical leads him to finally concluding that the mind and the body are different things, although they're closely connected. And finally, since he's gotten to the point where God exists and is not a deceiver, he now can know that there are things in the external world, and he can build up the rest of his knowledge on this foundation. So, and this is Descartes' rationalist program, right? Because ultimately, the ultimate justification that he has for thinking that something is in the external, that there are things, in the external world, is this process of rationalizing it, reasoning his way from his own thoughts to God's existence, and from God's existence to God's not being a deceiver, so therefore it has given him good reason to infer that there is an external world.